Previously, Li Tongya waited outside the chaos of Wangyue Lake and intercepted a fleeing cultivator carrying valuable treasures. Meanwhile, Li Xuanfeng journeyed to Guan Yun Peak to deliver the clan's tribute and seek a powerful formation for Lijing Mountain. Now, hidden inheritances begin to surface. Li Chijing reveals terrifying sword talent after reaching Foundation establishment, and the ancient mirror is about to recover another piece of its forgotten past. Let's continue with Reborn as an ancient mirror, episode 17. This man is definitely no ordinary figure. Forget a wandering cultivator, even 5 or 6 of the major clans together might not be able to raise a disciple like this. He must be from one of the 3 sects and 7 gates. Under Li Tongya's full assault, the female cultivator had managed to endure only a few dozen exchanges. The sword radiance around her weapon was already on the verge of collapsing, while each incoming strand of sword chi struck with crushing force. Her true essence was nearly exhausted as well. His true essence is obviously extraordinarily deep, yet there is no sharp wind aura, no heat, no chill? Qingchi Sect, or perhaps the Changshao Sect? Seeing that defeat was imminent, the woman gritted her teeth. She still could not bear to abandon the possessions in her storage pouch, so she called out, "I am a member of the Wu clan of Nanwu Commandery. Fellow Taoist, give my Wu clan some face today and I will remember this favor." Li Tongya shook his head and replied in a deep voice, "Am I supposed to travel all the way to Nanwu Commandery one day and ask your clan to repay me? Fellow Taoist, stop trying to brush me off with empty words. I will say it one last time. Leave your storage pouch and your artifact behind, and I can spare your life." Li Tongya had encountered members of the Wu clan before. On his first trip to Cloudwatch Peak, he had seen their people. There had never been any friendship between them, and now, unexpectedly, they had ended up on opposing sides. "Fellow Taoist, you go too far. My Wu clan is a great cultivation clan with a Foundation establishment ancestor. I am his 5th granddaughter. If you injure me, you will be making an enemy of a Foundation establishment cultivator. Think carefully." The woman spoke through clenched teeth, fierce in appearance but clearly losing her nerve. Li Tongya shattered the sword radiance around her weapon with a single strike and said coldly, "Foundation establishment? If I kill you here in this wilderness, even a purple mansion cultivator would have nowhere to begin searching. So what if you are his granddaughter? Even if you were his direct granddaughter, it would make no difference." He stopped talking after that. Sword after sword forced the woman surnamed Wu backward. Li Tongya flicked his blade aside, and the green sword in her hand gave a crisp clang before tumbling away. Just as Li Tongya's sword was about to thrust forward, a pale gold talisman suddenly flew from the woman's hand. His brows rose and he retreated without hesitation. Drawing his sword back as he gathered power, red light flashed across the talisman. 5 fiery spells shaped like small birds erupted from it and rushed toward Li Tongya. His moon cicada sword moved again and again. With great difficulty he shattered 2 of the flames, scattering them into crimson sparks. The remaining 3 spells were already upon him. Li Tongya had no choice but to bring his sword across his body and block, pouring true essence into the blade. Until brilliant light flared across its surface, the 3 fiery spells struck in succession, forcing him back 3 steps. His gray-white sword turned red-hot, sparks bursting from it. He hurriedly sheathed the weapon. By then, the woman had recovered her green sword and was already fleeing east on the wind. Li Tongya rose into the air after her. He poured true essence into his movement art without caring about the expense, and within a dozen breaths he had caught up. Sword chi shot from his blade and repeatedly struck her back. How can he be this fast? This is not the speed of a 5th-level chi refining cultivator. The woman panicked, stamping through the air as she accelerated. One hand again reached toward the storage pouch at her waist. Li Tongya's sword was still hot from the talisman's flames, and he had no intention of letting her struggle any longer. He slashed directly at the arm, reaching for the pouch. Pale white shields appeared over the woman's neck and back, but she had not expected Li Tongya to be so ruthless. Her attempt to shift position failed, and her arm fell away with the strike. She screamed in pain, sweat instantly covering her forehead. Her wind-riding art became unsteady. Li Tongya gave her no chance to recover and followed with another slash that nearly split her body in 2. Only then did she cry out once more and plunge headfirst toward the earth. The Wu clan of Nanwu Commandery truly deserved its reputation as a great clan. The woman's control was excellent. Even after her spellwork collapsed, she knew that falling directly from the sky would smash her into paste. She somehow steadied herself in mid-air, swaying violently. Li Tongya descended after her and ended her life with one swift strike. Looking at the dark blood pooling on the ground, Li Tongya frowned slightly. He flicked the blood from his blade and sighed in a low voice as he drew the storage pouch from her waist. "Fellow Taoist, you could have chosen life. You could even have chosen a dignified death, yet you had to choose such an ugly way to die." Using a spell to part the earth, Li Tongya disposed of the corpse and the bloodstains. Then he hurriedly rose into the air again. In the distance, lightning still raged. Li Tongya heard a furious shout rolling across the lake. There is another formation beneath this one? How cunning! I have built my foundation on Wangyue Lake for 200 years. Did you truly think I would have no hidden cards? The three of you can have a taste of this severing prohibition formation. The old hoarse voice carried a vicious edge. Lightning and showers of fire fell together. The formation on the island became tangled with the thunder and fire array above it. Yet the chaos did little to stop the numerous chi-refining cultivators who had slipped inside to steal whatever they could. Everyone watching was secretly alarmed. The colored clouds at the horizon gradually dimmed, and the radiance of lightning and formation light slowly faded. The small island in the lake had become a scorched wasteland. Unease rose in Li Tongya's heart. He turned and flew across the lake for a while, found a small island, then cast the water avoidance art and sank beneath the surface until his figure disappeared. The Li clan had sent many people to investigate the old serpent demon's cave dwelling the previous year. Several hundred mortals now lived inside it, together with 3 embryonic breath cultivators. The bones and corpses had long since been cleared away, and more than 10 courtyards had been built. Pale blue crystals embedded in the ceiling provided light, giving the hidden settlement a strange charm of its own. Li Tongya waved away the embryonic breath cultivators who hurried forward to greet him and found an empty room. He was about to regulate his breathing when he realized that his true essence was already almost completely restored. The heavy sea-long whale, truly extraordinary. He took out the woman's storage pouch and emptied it. A pile of faintly glowing spiritual objects spilled onto the floor. With a flick of his fingers, he summoned a flame and burned away her clothing and other useless personal items, then began inspecting his spoils. Assorted embryonic breath talismans, 23 spirit stones, 3 chi-refining talismans, 3 embryonic breath artifacts, and more than 10 bottles of embryonic breath pills. After pushing the miscellaneous objects aside, Li Tongya drew a tall pill furnace from the storage pouch. Its surface was stained with blood. His eyes immediately lit up. A pill furnace! No wonder she refused to give up her storage pouch. Pill furnaces have always been worth far more than ordinary artifacts, and this one looks excellent. It may be worth several hundred spirit stones. Judging from the blood on the furnace and the woman's decent combat strength, Li Tongya had no idea how many people she had killed to seize it. He cast a cleansing art, washed away the blood, and happily stored the furnace before examining the 3 chi-refining talismans. This fire spell is extremely powerful. If used by surprise, even a late-stage chi-refining cultivator would suffer badly. The other 2 are more ordinary, 1 defensive shield spell and 1 rain of needles spell. They should only carry the power of an early chi-refining technique. After storing the talismans, he picked up an identity token forged from King Wu metal. The character Wu was engraved across its face. Li Tongya casually put it away, then sat cross-legged and entered cultivation. Li Xuanfeng followed the ancient Li road through most of the night before finally reaching Cloudwatch Peak. The Shao clan's mountain was covered in clouds and mist. Pale white fog concealed the trees and travelers almost completely. Li Xuanfeng lowered his altitude. As soon as he approached, a repelling force pressed against him, and someone below shouted, "Brother, flying is forbidden over Cloudwatch Peak!" Li Xuanfeng hurriedly descended to the foot of the mountain. A 17 or 18-year-old youth stood there smiling at him. The young man wore an elegant robe, had striking features, and cupped his hands politely. "Which young master from the western lands might you be?" "You flatter me." Li Xuanfeng quickly waved a hand. Seeing how courteous the other youth was, he answered, "I am Li Xuanfeng of the Liqing Li clan. I have come to deliver our tribute." "The Liqing Li clan?" The youth raised his brows. "The Li clan beside Wangyue Lake? I am Xiao Ruyu of the Xiao clan. Welcome, honored guest. You are too courteous." Li Xuanfeng recalled Li Tongya's warnings before his departure and immediately returned the greeting. Xiao Ruyu asked curiously, "And Senior Li Tongya?" "He is my clan uncle." Li Xuanfeng laughed lightly and continued with deliberate courtesy. "By my uncle's instructions, I have also come to visit Senior Xiao Youngling." Understanding dawned on Xiao Ruyu's face. He smiled and nodded. "Uncle Youngling ordered me to wait here for someone from the Li clan. Brother Xuanfeng, please follow me." With that, he descended the remaining steps, smiled at Li Xuanfeng and rose into the air. He too was a chi-refining cultivator. The two flew for a while before landing on another mountain peak. A small courtyard stood at the summit, with 2 pots of plum blossoms beside its gate. Xiao Ruyu stepped forward and knocked gently. "Uncle, the Li clan's representative has arrived." The gate creaked open at once. A hearty laugh approached from within, and a middle-aged man emerged. His eyes were long and narrow, a snow-white fox fur robe draped over his shoulders, and a brocade pouch hung at his waist. He was fairly handsome. At the sight of Li Xuanfeng, he paused and asked, "You are?" I am Li Xuanfeng of the Li clan. My second uncle has been occupied by important matters recently, so I came in his place to pay respects. Only then did Xiao Yongling nod. He said with a hint of regret, "It is unfortunate that I cannot see Brother Tongya. I have thought of him often." He looked Li Xuanfeng over with some curiosity. "What level has Brother Tongya reached now?" "My second uncle has reached the 3rd level of qi refining." Li Xuanfeng answered exactly as Li Tongya had instructed. "The 3rd level?" Xiao Yongling froze for a moment, then clicked his tongue in admiration. Brother Tongya has not been idle at all. He has already reached the 3rd level of qi refining. The first time I met him, I knew he was no ordinary man. As expected, he led Li Xuanfeng into the courtyard and filled cups of tea for both youths. After glancing at Li Xuanfeng, he smiled. "The younger generation is impressive as well. You look only 15 or 16, yet you have already entered qi refining. Even in my Xiao clan, such talent would rank among the very best. Senior overpraises me." After a few pleasantries and some family conversation, Li Xuanfeng finally asked, "Our family's grand formation was destroyed by the Shangyue and has not yet been restored. I was instructed to find a formation master within the commandery who can construct a new defensive array. I wonder whether Senior has any suitable contacts." "Of course." Xiao Yongling nodded. "Formation work is specialized. Even a qi refining grade formation is troublesome to construct. The master must engrave formation patterns and map out the entire terrain. Without several days and nights of work, it cannot be completed. A basic qi refining formation costs at least 30 spirit stones. If you want one of the better grand formations capable of resisting a peak qi refining cultivator, it may cost close to 100. Li Xuanfeng nodded. "The clan has already considered this. The spirit stones are prepared." "Good." Xiao Yongling took a sip of tea and considered for several breaths. "I will make inquiries over the next few days. I should be able to give you an answer soon. There is still more than half a month before tribute is due, so we have enough time." "Many thanks, Senior." Li Xuanfeng nodded repeatedly, delighted. Xiao Yongling shook his head with a smile. "What is there to thank me for? Our two families have been friendly for decades. Your younger uncle and one of my own clan uncles are fellow disciples, and he even helped my family obtain the Sui One pill. This is a trivial matter." After a few more polite exchanges, Li Xuanfeng drank his tea and asked, "Senior, have you ever heard of metallic mineral veins harming mortals?" "Certainly." Xiao Yongling paused, then explained, "My family oversees 22 mines. I once managed mining affairs myself, so I know something about this. Metal qi, lightning qi, fire qi, and cold yin substances often damage the vitality of mortals. Deaths are especially common. If the material is only embryonic breath grade, regular shift rotations are usually enough. But qi refining or even foundation establishment grade spiritual materials can sometimes kill mortals simply through prolonged exposure. In such places, cultivators must personally handle the extraction. So that is how it is. Junior has learned much." Li Xuanfeng nodded in understanding and thanked him. Xiao Yongling then took out a jade slip and said solemnly, "Brother Tongya once asked me to find a certain book for him. I have finally obtained it. I will give it to you now. Take it back to the Li clan when you return." Li Xuanfeng paused as he accepted the jade slip. "I never heard second uncle mention any book. If this were truly something he had requested, how could he have forgotten to remind me? The Xiao clan must have some other purpose. Thank you, Senior Yongling." Xiao Yongling waved dismissively. Li Xuanfeng then asked about Li Chijing. Xiao Yongling shook his head. "There has been no news at all. One of my own clan uncles also went south many years ago and has not sent a single letter home. It is rather strange." Unease stirred in Li Shifeng's heart. Xiao Yongling continued warmly. "The scenery in the commandery is very different from the western lands. There is still more than half a month before tribute is due. You may as well explore while you are here." Li Xuanfeng understood that he was being politely dismissed. He cupped his hands, took his leave, and left the courtyard. Outside, he sent his spiritual sense into the jade slip and saw several small words written inside. A magnificent 200 years of killing high commandery. Li Xuanfeng could make little sense of it. He stored the jade slip, bade farewell to Xiao Ruyu and flew east. After Li Xuanfeng left, Xiao Yongling quietly put away the teapot and sighed. "Qi refining at 15. This Li clan certainly knows how to produce talented descendants. Uncle's judgment was correct." Xiao Ruming, standing nearby, offered the compliment. Xiao Yongling shook his head. Back then, it was the ancestor himself who summoned Li Tongya and gave him that pill. It was also the ancestor who instructed me to befriend Li Tongya and maintain good relations with the Li clan. The ancestor sees much farther than we do. And now? He suddenly fell silent, lowered his head, and smiled faintly to himself. With the ancestor and Uncle Yuanzi present, our clan should enjoy 800 years of peace. He exchanged a glance with Xiao Ruyu. Both men smiled. Xiao Yongling then sighed again, his expression becoming complicated. Only someone like the ancestor could break through Qingchi Sect's blockade. Caution. Patience. Neither arrogance nor impatience, only such a man can preserve a family's inheritance. Yu Wujie was once glorious beyond measure, his talent enough to shock Purple Mansion ancestors. Yet he still died in the southern border. He looked at Xiao Ruming seriously. Ruming, that is why the ancestor ordered you to temper your cultivation and forbade you from breaking through within 5 years. In this world, the greatest geniuses and the greatest fools often meet the most miserable ends. Li Xuanfeng flew several li before the walls of Lixia Commandery appeared along the horizon. Smoke and human bustle rose around the city gates. The road was crowded with ox carts, horse carriages belonging to wealthy families, merchants and travelers. It was extraordinarily lively. The ancient Li Road ended here. The road into Lixia Commandery was broad and flat. Vendors pushed small carts along both sides, selling pastries, porridge, and snacks. Remembering the lesson from Cloudwatch Peak, Li Xuanfeng stopped outside the walls and descended before entering the city. An immortal master! Move aside! Father, look at the sky! The crowd below immediately fell into chaos. People scrambled away in terror, clearing a wide, empty space. Dust rose everywhere, overturning goods and bowls. Children cried, horses screamed, and soldiers shouted. Li Xuanfeng frowned at the spectacle. Before he could speak, everyone around him dropped to their knees. More than a dozen gate guards trembled as they repeatedly kowtowed without daring to raise their heads. A child in the crowd burst into tears after being knocked to the ground, yet no one dared even pick the child up. The area around Li Xuanfeng instantly fell silent. Merchant caravans and travelers farther away scattered from the road. Those who had been waiting in line since dawn stood frozen, staring at the ground as if flowers might bloom there. The commotion left Li Xuanfeng stunned. He realized he had probably caused some enormous misunderstanding. He opened his mouth, looked at the terrified crowd, and in the end cast a concealment art, withdrew his presence, and walked into the city. The people remained kneeling for more than 10 breaths after he vanished. Finally, one soldier cautiously raised his head. Seeing the empty road, his eyes filled with grateful tears. The Immortal Lord is merciful. The Immortal Lord is merciful. The scene outside the city left Li Xuanfeng confused and faintly bitter. The Li clan had risen only 40 or 50 years ago. The divide between cultivators and mortals had not yet widened so terribly among them. His mortal uncles still treated him like a younger relative. Commoners bowed when they saw cultivators, but no one had ever demanded that they kneel and kowtow. The 4 foundation establishment great clans Xiao, Wu, Ma, and Chang have ruled this commandery for hundreds of years. The mortals are frightened to this extent. The gulf between immortal and mortal is far greater than I imagined. After thinking for a long time, Li Xuanfeng shook his head and looked down the broad street. I still need somewhere to stay. There are several days before I leave. His spiritual sense swept outward and quickly found a lavishly decorated building with more than 10 clean, spacious rooms. He nodded and walked toward the large establishment, whose railings and eaves were hung with red silk. Drunken Spring House. Li Xuanfeng read the large characters on the sign and thought the name rather strange for an inn. He stepped inside and found plates of fruit and vegetables scattered everywhere. It looked as though an all-night banquet had only recently ended. Chairs lay overturned, large wooden tables stood in disarray, and no one had yet cleaned up the mess from the night before. There was almost nowhere to put his feet. Li Xuanfeng frowned, but he did not want to search elsewhere. He noticed a young girl sitting near the stairs with her knees hugged to her chest and asked, "Do you have a room?" The girl looked up. She had a cute round face, though she appeared exhausted. A little powder had been applied to her cheeks. She stared at him for a moment, her young features brightening slightly, then pressed her pale lips together and nodded. "Please follow me, young master." The two went upstairs. A heavily made-up woman leaning against the railing glanced at them and sneered. "You have eaten for free for a month, and now you finally catch a customer first thing in the morning. And a young master at that. What luck!" The girl pursed her lips and looked at the woman fearfully without answering. Li Xuanfeng gave the woman one cold glance and followed the girl into a room. The woman in the corridor froze under his hostile gaze. Several breaths passed before she recovered and muttered, "So young, yet such a temper." Inside the room, Li Xuanfeng removed the black longbow nearly as tall as himself and hung it on the wall before sitting on the bed. The girl remained standing there, watching him nervously. Li Xuanfeng frowned. "What is it?" The girl's outer robe slipped softly to the floor, revealing snow-white skin. She stepped closer and sat naked on the edge of the bed, staring at him. Her lips, naturally soft and pale red, were slightly parted. Her youthful face still carried a trace of innocence, but unease filled the depths of her eyes. Li Xuanfeng's mind went blank for a moment. Confused, he stared at her and asked awkwardly, "What kind of place is this?" "Drunken Spring House." She smiled. Her features were still young, yet there was a practiced softness in the gesture. Drunken Spring House. At last, Li Xuanfeng understood. The instincts of a young man awakened in him. With almost no psychological burden, he accepted what had been placed before him and drew the girl into his arms, kissing her lightly. After a while, Li Xuanfeng found himself unsure what came next. The girl unfastened his belt and took his hand, guiding him with quiet familiarity. He followed instinct through territory entirely new to him. He touched her slender hands and looked into the glistening eyes that had grown hazy with emotion. Her round, pretty face flushed. The heat in his body seemed ready to burst. "So this is what people mean by pleasure," he muttered with a laugh. "Young master!" The girl cried out softly in pain, her long black hair spilling across the bedding. Li Xuanfeng caught one of her feet and asked between breaths, "What is your name?" "Jiang Yunu," she answered faintly, eyes closed. "A few years ago, an immortal killed people in the street. Later, refugees kept fleeing east, murdering and robbing grain along the way. Everyone in my family died except me. I followed a merchant caravan east until I reached this place, and ended up doing this for a living. How long have you been here?" "Less than a month. Young master is my first guest." Li Xuanfeng let out a breath and said quietly, "Then you do not need to do this anymore." Jiang Yunu did not understand what he meant. Thinking he was merely comforting her, she only nodded dimly. Li Xuanfeng lowered his head again. A moment later, Jiang Yun cried out, her limbs tensing sharply. I. She managed only those two words before closing her eyes again. While Li Xuanfeng was away in the commandery, Li Tongya sat in the great courtyard on Lijing Mountain, lost in thought. The turmoil on Wangyue Lake had already settled. Only scorched earth, residual lightning, and patches of raging flame remained. 3 separate groups of Foundation establishment cultivators had arrived one after another. Anything truly valuable had long since been stripped away. With nothing more to gain, Li Tongya returned to Lijing Mountain. From afar, however, he saw the white-haired Lu Sisi approaching with his jade ruyi in hand. "Brother Tongya!" Lu Sisi called out with excessive warmth. Li Tongya smiled bitterly to himself, cupped his hands and replied, "Senior Lu, Wangyue Lake has certainly been lively." "You can say that again." The various sects came to exterminate the remnants of Lingyu Sect. Who would have imagined that Wangyue Lake Market, which had operated for more than 200 years, was actually established by a Lingyu survivor hiding right beneath Qingchi Sect's nose? Li Tongya and Lu Sisi entered the courtyard and sat down. Servants brought tea. Li Tongya cupped his hands and asked, "What exactly did Lingyu Sect do to make the great sects destroy it?" Lu Sisi sighed repeatedly. "What did they do wrong? Their greatest crime was simply being weaker than others. In that earth-shaking battle at Wangyue Lake, Lingyu Sect lost 6 Foundation establishment and Purple Mansion cultivators. In the end, only 1 Foundation establishment cultivator and a few scattered chi-refining disciples remained. Their destruction was inevitable. The 3 sects claimed that Lingyu Sect had become too weak and that its Purple Mansion inheritance was in danger of disappearing. So they demanded that Lingyu hand over its inheritance for safekeeping and abolish that branch of cultivation within the sect. By then, Lingyu had already lost nearly all its territory. If they accepted such humiliation, the sect would have died in name even if it survived in body. Naturally, they refused, so they were exterminated. Li Tongya listened carefully and nodded in silence. If they wanted the inheritance, why go through the trouble of forcing them like that? Lingyu Sect was stubborn enough, at least. What happened to that inheritance? It disappeared. Disappeared? Li Tongya paused. Lu Sisi continued. When Lingyu Sect was destroyed, 61 jade slips containing its Purple Mansion inheritance vanished. Ever since then, the clans under the 3 sects and 7 gates have searched for them. More than 200 years have passed, and no one has ever heard a reliable trace. The people who attacked Wangyue Lake Market this time were also hunting Lingyu remnants, because they believed those survivors might know where the Purple Mansion inheritance went. Li Tongya's heart jolted violently. He remembered what Jiang Yun had said inside the Serpent Demon's cave. After Lingyu Sect was destroyed, the river and mountain Great Tomb scripture vanished as well. It requires a secret method to unlock. Could the river and mountain Great Tomb scripture be that Purple Mansion inheritance? The thought exploded in his mind. Li Tongya forced himself to remain calm. The more he considered it, the more plausible it seemed. As Lu Sisi continued talking, Li Tongya remembered the seal locking the jade slip and thought, without Lingyu Sect's secret method, I cannot open it anyway. For now, I can only hide it in the clan and search for a solution later. Brother Tongya, have you reached a decision about the marriage? Lu Sisi's voice snapped him from his thoughts. Li Tongya shook his head slightly. It is still too early. Seeing the gloom in Lu Sisi's eyes, the old man set down his teacup and smiled. North of Buzhong Mountain, there is a clan called the Yu clan. Brother Tongya, have you heard of them? Li Tongya nodded. I have. Even when Wan Huachan was alive, the Wan clan did not dare provoke them. The Yu clan in the north has now submitted to Qingchi Sect and has behaved itself these past few years. Exactly. Lu Sisi took a sip of tea. The Yu clan has a foundation establishment cultivator presiding over it, and more than 10 chi refining cultivators. Its strength is not much weaker than the great clans of Lixia Commandery. They only recently submitted to Qingchi Sect, so they do not dare make too much noise. That is why they have remained quiet. Senior means. Li Tongya looked puzzled. Lu Sisi's expression became stern. An upright man need not speak in riddles. Brother Tongya, there is no need to delay any longer. If this marriage is settled, our clans become kin. If it is not, then your Li clan remains a tiger sleeping beside my family. Once as I die, even if my Lu clan must invite a wolf into the house, I will still find a way to leave my descendants a road to survival. Li Tongya's expression changed. What exactly do you mean? Naturally, I mean handing Huaqinshan over to the Yu clan. At worst, my Lu clan abandons everything and moves to the Junlin Plains. At least then my descendants may survive. Lu Sisi set his cup down heavily. Either form a marriage alliance with my Lu clan and promise not to seize our lands, or wait for the Yu clan to move south. Occupy Huaqianshan and Fuxi Mountain, and trap your Li clan against the Great Mountains. Li Tongya fell silent. He looked down at Lu Sisi and saw that the old man was completely serious. Brother Lu, you are pressing me rather hard. Are you not afraid I will simply keep you here, turn around, and destroy your clan? Ha 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 ha! Lu Sisi burst into laughter, then answered solemnly. You would not dare. My younger sister cultivated on Moon Lake Peak while she was alive. Before her death, she entrusted certain matters to the master of Moon Lake Peak. So there is still some old affection between them and my family. If you killed me, even your younger brother inside Qingchi Sect would suffer greatly. Li Tongya, you may covet my land, but you will not destroy my bloodline outright. Li Tongya gave him a long look. Whom do you want your granddaughter to marry? Either of the two young masters. Brother Tongya may choose. Lu Sisi waved broadly. Pretending at generosity, Li Tongya studied him and thought, it is only a temporary measure. The younger generation of the Lu clan is useless. Even with a promise like this, they would merely prolong their decline. If I stabilize this old man first, there will be countless ways to deal with the Lu clan after it weakens. Xuanfeng is Xiangping's son, and his talent is extraordinary. I cannot gamble away his future, then I can only wrong Xuanling. After several breaths of silence, Li Tongya said, Then Li Xuanling, he is my only son. Allowing him to marry into this alliance should be enough to show the sincerity of my clan. Lu Sisi nodded repeatedly. Li Tongya stared at him hard and said with a cold smile, Since we have spoken this plainly, Senior should also understand something. I may agree not to move against your clan, but the Li clan must still expand. Senior Lu had better think of a solution that leaves both sides room to live. Otherwise, this matter will not end so easily. Hearing this, Lu Sisi believed him a little more. He thought for several breaths before gritting his teeth. After I die, the Li clan may take the Yang clan's Yanzhong Mountain. My Lu clan will not interfere. Li Tongya nearly sneered. Your Lu clan would not have the strength to stop us by then anyway. What a fine calculation, offering me something that will already be inevitable. He had no desire to argue further. Very well, then it is settled. I want to see the Lu clan's direct daughter first. Lu Sisi immediately nodded. The young woman standing behind him silently lifted her veil, revealing an elegant, refined face and a pair of bright, clear eyes. When Li Tongya looked over, she lowered her gaze and said, Lu Wanyang of the Lu clan greets Senior. Li Tongya examined her. She was beautiful and possessed spiritual apertures. As a wife for Li Xuanling, she was more than qualified. As for affection, that was another matter entirely. In truth, both young people were being wronged by the arrangement, then let them be betrothed. With that quiet sentence, the engagement was decided. Lu Sisi was overjoyed and immediately settled the betrothal gifts and dates. Li Tongya looked at the old man of more than 180 years with a complicated expression. Truly gives everything for your clan. Your descendants are fortunate to have you. Lu Sisi clearly had not expected such words from him. Emotion flickered across his face. His mouth opened, but several breaths passed before he answered. The younger generation at home is foolish. This old man simply cannot put his heart at ease. At my age, I still have to beg and scheme for a road of survival for the family. It is a sorrowful thing. Li Tongya shook his head. Lu Sisi's expression became even more complicated. I only hope, Brother Tongya, that one day you do not become like me. If that day comes, you will understand how bitter it is. Strong winds swept across Yishan City. Outside a stone cave on the mountain, Qijing stood silently as his robes snapped in the wind. One finger rested lightly against the sword at his waist while he waited. After a long while, he frowned at the narrow gray-black seam between the stone doors and said softly, Junior brother, there is no need to delay anymore. 3 full years have passed. With your talent, you must have broken through long ago. Several breaths of silence followed. Then the stone doors suddenly swung wide. A young man in white robes stepped out. His long hair was tied back, a blue-white sword hung at his waist, and he carried 2 jade slips in one hand. He smiled at Qijing. What instructions does senior brother Qi have for me? Qi looked him over from head to toe. The sect has issued a mission. The ancestor named you personally. Li Chijing nodded lightly. Please wait for a moment, senior brother. I will make a few preparations and then accompany you. Seeing how cooperative he was, Qi relaxed somewhat and left with a sweep of his sleeve. Li Chijing watched him go, then rode the wind toward another cave dwelling on the mountain. Senior brother Xiao! The stone door opened quickly. Inside, Xiao Yuanxi held 2 medicinal herbs in one hand and a brush in the other, as though he had been writing something. At first he brightened at the sight of Li Chijing. Then his expression rapidly darkened. Jinger, you broke through. Xiao Yuanxi was now over 60, though he still looked only a little over 30. He had watched Li Chijing grow from a child after coming to the mountain and had never stopped calling him Jinger. Hearing it now made Li Chijing's heart ache. It is all right, Li Chijing smiled and sat beside him. The 6 wheels in my body have transformed into a Dao Foundation. The Dao Foundation formed from the moon lake reflecting autumn art is called Autumn over the Lake Moon. Its aura is blue-white, its true essence clear and translucent, and it excels at transformation. It is quite wondrous. Envy appeared in Xiao Yuanxi's face. He was still stuck at the peak of Qi refining, and had yet to gain enough confidence to attempt Foundation establishment. The wonders of Foundation establishment naturally lie far beyond what we can imagine. I have heard that my clan ancestor's Dao Foundation is called Old Man Above the Stream. It too possesses many mysteries that cannot easily be described, but I do not know how long I will remain at the peak of Qi refining, nor whether I can survive that life and death threshold. The most crucial step in advancing from Qi refining to Foundation establishment was dissolving the 6 wheels and condensing them into a Dao Foundation. The process was perilous beyond measure. Once condensation failed, one's cultivation would collapse into nothing. Essence and vitality would scatter, and death would follow within days. Not even 1 cultivator in 10 succeeded. Even within the 3 sects and 7 gates, the death rate approached 70%. Senior brother will certainly succeed. Li Chijing offered a few words of comfort, then handed him the 2 jade slips. I broke through during the first year. During the remaining time, I recorded my experiences and the talisman arts I have studied over these years. Later, I will also leave the green-red sword with you. Please send all of this back to my family for me. Xiao Yuanxi naturally accepted the jade slips. 1,000 things filled his heart, but he did not know where to begin. Before he could speak, Li Chijing had already left the cave and stepped into the air above Yishan City, looking down at the people moving through the streets below. That simple act immediately alarmed everyone. Several Foundation establishment cultivators rose into the air, followed by more than 10 Qi refining cultivators. All of them stared at Li Chijing. Qi Juyan hurried over from another peak and shouted angrily, Li Chijing, what are you trying to do? Li Chijing blinked in surprise. Seeing that such a small movement had made everyone react as though facing a mortal enemy, he laughed softly. Everyone, be at ease. Chijing has no intention of escaping. I simply have 1 or 2 matters I wish to ask senior brother Qi. The cultivators below exchanged embarrassed looks and gradually descended again. Qi Juyan remained, face ugly, struggling to suppress his temper. What else do you want? Li Chijing cupped his hands. First, if I should die, I ask that the sect return my artifact to my family. Qi Juyan frowned at the sword hanging from his waist. I agree. Second, I wish to spar with senior brother Qi. I hope senior brother will grant me this request. The moment he spoke, everyone below was shocked into silence. Qi Juyan stared at him, then laughed. You have only just entered Foundation establishment. I have remained in the middle stage for more than 20 years. Do not let others say I bullied a junior with seniority. Privately, suspicion rose in his heart. Could this brat be trying to die beneath my sword and make me bear the blame? Such a crude trick could never fool the ancestor. Is he not afraid his entire clan would be exterminated? Li Chijing cupped his hands again, stubbornly repeating, Please grant me this request. Qi Juyan's thoughts shifted. He sneered inwardly. Perfected Yuansu is watching from within the city. No matter what scheme this brat has. Before a purple mansion cultivator, it is meaningless. I may as well teach him a lesson and show him what it means to know there are always greater heavens beyond the heavens. He nodded coldly. Very well. He drew his sword. Crimson sword chi erupted and rushed straight at Li Chijing, sweeping through the cold sky like a red flood. In an instant, it split into dozens of bird-shaped streams of sword chi, each carrying scorching heat and razor-sharp force. Sword chi leaving the body and moving like spellcraft. Senior brother Qi may already have cultivated sword essence. Several cultivators watching from below cried out in admiration as the crimson sword chi took the shapes of birds and phoenixes. Deng Qiuji, however, stared bitterly at Qi Juyan and sneered. It is only sword essence. The crimson light painted the sky red. Li Chijing watched Qi Juyan calmly. His left hand rested on the sword at his waist, but he neither drew it nor cast any spell. Only when the flock of sword chi was about to reach him did he suddenly unsheath his weapon. A brilliant white crescent of sword chi swept outward, the Moon Gang sword arc. Compared with Li Chijing, Li Tongya's use of the Moon Gang sword arc was like a firefly beside the full moon. In Li Chijing's hands, the arc became a vast sail of pure white light. It bleached the surroundings, forcing the spectators to squint. The crimson sword chi vanished beneath it, and the white crescent continued straight toward Qi Juyun. Qi Juyun frowned and swung his sword to defend. More than 10 strands of sword chi poured out, yet they merely dimmed the crescent slightly. Alarm flashed across his face. He stopped underestimating Li Chijing, gathered his strength, and raised his sword. Deep red light spread across the blade as he forcibly met the white arc. How is this possible? Shock erupted in Qi Juyun's heart. Before he could speak, he hurriedly circulated his arts to push away the sword arc. Li Chijing had already stepped forward. Dozens of plain, unadorned sword chi streaked toward him. Qi Juyun swung his sword repeatedly and discovered that every one of those sword chi carried dense, razor-sharp force. He immediately understood that Li Chijing's attainment in the sword had already surpassed his own. Relying on his deeper cultivation, Qi Juyun rapidly formed hand seals and summoned more than 10 foundation establishment fire spells at once, hoping to disrupt Li Chijing's sword rhythm. Li Chijing cut through all of them with a single sweep. Explosions thundered through the sky and turned into a rain of fire falling toward Yishan City. Yet every flame disappeared before touching the ground. Deng Chuji's heart went cold. As expected, a purple mansion cultivator is personally overseeing this place. They have sealed every possible gap. If the sect intends to suppress our families, they even sent a purple mansion perfected one to watch us. They truly fear that we might disobey. Sword chi clashed more than a dozen times in the air. Qi Juyun's expression grew increasingly ugly. Anyone with eyes could see that he had fallen behind in sword attainment. Anger surged through him. No longer caring how Li Chijing's cultivation compared with his own, he slapped his brocade pouch and summoned an engraved treasure pearl. His hands formed a seal, and a dark red curtain of light appeared around him. Li Chijing glanced at him, then suddenly sheathed his sword and smiled. Senior brother Qi Juyun froze, unsure how to respond. Li Chijing stepped forward. "Take one sword from me." Clang! The instant those words fell, metallic cries rang throughout Yishan City. Deng Chuji's sword trembled at his waist. Every blade within the city began vibrating and humming. "Take one sword from me." Li Chijing repeated the words. White brilliance like moonlight flowed from the sword at his waist. His left hand rose slightly. The cold wind over Yishan City abruptly went still, and the entire world seemed washed in white. Deng Chu pressed down on the trembling sword at his waist, his heart surging. He too walked the path of the sword. Though his cultivation was not high, he understood the bearing of this strike. Cicada sword intent. Brother Chijing has always hidden his strength, never showing off. Now that he has reached the end of the road, he has finally stopped concealing himself. White light poured forth like moonlight, seeming slow yet crossing the distance in an instant. It struck Qi Juyun's crimson barrier as though passing through a sheet of paper. Layer after layer of golden protective light from talismans flashed around Qi Juyun, only to shatter one after another. Coldness touched his throat. Qi Juyun's face turned deathly pale. "Ancestor, save me!" A trace of astonishment appeared in Li Chijing's eyes. The moon-white light swept across Qi Juyun's face yet did not injure him at all. Qi Juyun stood frozen for several breaths. "Sword intent?" Li Chijing cupped his hands as though he had heard nothing. "Thank you for the guidance, Senior Brother Qi." "Good!" Qi Juyun forced out the word. His face remained white. "What sword intent was that?" "Moon Gang sword intent." Li Chijing nodded lightly. Qi Juyun's expression became complicated. "What a pity! What a pity!" Only then did the sound of swords dropping to the ground ring out below, awakening everyone from their daze. Whispers spread through the crowd. No one dared speak too openly because of Qi Juyun's background, but shock filled every pair of eyes. Li Chijing descended. Xiao Yuanxi stared at him with his mouth open. "You nearly killed Qi Juyun? I would not dare." Li Chijing sheathed his sword and shook his head. "If I killed him, the other members of the Qi clan might fear the Purple Mansion. Perfected one enough not to move against me directly, but they would inevitably take revenge on my family. I only wanted to teach him a lesson. Aren't you afraid he will hate you and secretly make trouble for your clan?" Xiao Yuanxi asked curiously. "Qi Juyun is proud of his talent and status. He would not resort to such methods. We have lived together for many years. We understand one another." Li Chijing smiled and stretched. At that moment, someone approached the cave and bowed. "Senior, the sect's people have arrived. They ask that you depart now." Xiao Yuanxi stiffened. The man who had not truly lost his temper in more than 10 years suddenly flushed with anger, his sleeves billowing without wind. "They cannot even wait this long?" The messenger lowered his head in terror. Xiao Yuanxi immediately realized he had lost control and softened his tone to apologize. Li Chijing merely nodded. "Lead the way." "Jinger," Xiao Yuanxi called after him. Li Chijing removed the sword from his waist and placed it in Xiao Yuanxi's hands. "Take care, senior brother." Then he stepped outside and descended on the wind, leaving Xiao Yuanxi standing alone with the sword and jade slips clenched tightly in his hands. His expression shifted several times, as if he had finally made a decision. "Master, forgive me, I cannot remain in the sect any longer." Li Chijing entered the grand hall on the mountain. In the central seat where Qi usually sat was a man dressed entirely in green. His face was indistinct, as though hidden behind mist. Qi stood respectfully at one side. Someone else knelt below. It was Deng Qiuji, his head lowered, thoughts unreadable. "Greetings, perfected one." From the man's bearing, Li Chijing knew he was almost certainly a purple mansion cultivator. He bowed, then lifted his head and stared at him, as if trying to pierce the haze and see the cultivator's true face. "Insolent!" Qi immediately shouted in alarm. The purple mansion cultivator raised a hand. "It is fine." The green-robed cultivator looked Li Chijing over. A small jade seal hanging at his waist swayed gently. After a moment, he suddenly asked, "Moongang sword intent. How long ago did you comprehend it?" "More than 5 years." The purple mansion cultivator murmured to himself, stepped forward, and carefully examined Li Chijing's brow. Only after confirming that there was no crescent-shaped mark, the pattern that seemed to haunt his memory, did he speak again. "I have never approved of senior brother Qi Wei's methods. Every talented disciple in the sect is sent away to pave a road for him alone. Unfortunately, the old man back then favored his way of doing things. Now Qi Wei is sect master and his cultivation is high. I can only follow orders." Qi Juyun immediately closed his eyes and pretended not to hear. The green-robed purple mansion cultivator glanced at him before continuing. "Stand." Li Chijing rose. The purple mansion cultivator lightly lifted one hand and took a single step forward. In the blink of an eye, the three of them had crossed the sea of clouds. The sun was rising brilliantly. Carrying Li Chijing and Deng Qiuji, the cultivator flew south, sweeping over the flat wasteland beyond Yishan City and plunging deep into the endless southern border. So fast, the scenery flashed past like lightning. The forest beneath their feet blurred into a single sheet of green while distant mountains rushed into view. Li Chijing laughed softly. To be a purple mansion cultivator must be wonderfully carefree. The green-robed man glanced at him in surprise while maintaining the spell that carried them forward. Then he nodded. "Not carefree at all. Purple mansion cultivators have their own constraints. Most of the time, we are simply less likely to be used as someone else's chess piece." "Brat." He looked at Li Chijing again and smiled. "You truly suit my temperament. If things had not already reached this point, I would have liked to take you as a disciple and teach you properly. Unfortunately, you have no choice but to die now. Even if the great Zhao fails to refine the pill, I must personally watch you turn to ash before I can leave with peace of mind." Li Chijing did not know whether to laugh or cry. Li Mutian's face suddenly appeared in his mind. Judging by the years, the old man had probably already passed away. Li Chijing had been isolated in Yishan City, completely cut off from news. He had no idea what had happened at home. Deng Qiuji's expression was dark. He stared blankly at the sunlight. The rushing wind battered his face painfully, yet he seemed to notice nothing. Before long, they descended into a forest. Ahead lay a vast pool of water so deep its bottom could not be seen. The water was green as jade and not a single ripple disturbed the surface. A boy who looked little more than 10 years old sat nearby. He wore an ink-black robe that shimmered like scales and leaned against a great tree with his eyes half closed as if asleep. The green-robed purple mansion cultivator cupped his hands respectfully.
"Senior, the people have been brought."
The boy suddenly opened his eyes. They were a pair of emerald vertical pupils like those of a serpent Zhao. He stared at the green-robed cultivator and asked quietly, "Why is it you again? Where is Qi Wei?" "The sect master is in seclusion preserving his vitality while waiting for senior's pill." The boy shook his head and sneered. "I think that old ghost is simply afraid of me and does not dare come to my southern border. So he sent you instead." The pressure from the two mighty beings sealed Li Chijing so completely that he could not even speak. Staring at the boy's green vertical pupils, he immediately understood. This must be the great Zhao that purple mansion cultivator mentioned. The great Zhaos noticed that Li Chijing could not move beneath their combined pressure and gave him a look. "Autumn over the lake moon as a Dao foundation. That meets the requirement? Wait there." With his other hand, he seized Deng Qiuji and examined him carefully before nodding. "Same as always. A qi refining cultivator who practiced the secret method, under 30 years old. The medicinal age is just right." He grabbed both Li Chijing and Deng Qiuji and plunged into the water. Li Chijing's vision darkened. When it cleared again, he was inside a cave dwelling made almost entirely of green jade. Jade tables, jade chairs, jade platforms, jade shelves, the whole place glowed with an extravagant emerald radiance. At the center stood an enormous golden pill furnace wide enough for 5 men to embrace, with dark red flames burning beneath it. The great Zhao patted Li Chijing on the head, looked at his arm, formed a hand seal, and chuckled. "You really do look delicious. If I had not already promised that old ghost Qi, I would honestly like to eat you." With that, he tossed Li Chijing into the pill furnace. Then he lifted Deng Chuji over the opening and drew a finger across his chest and abdomen. Blood immediately poured out. Deng Chuji groaned and fainted before being thrown heavily into the furnace as well. Li Chijing still could not speak or move. Looking at Deng Chuji's miserable condition, he sighed inwardly as blood slowly spread around them. One spiritual ingredient after another fell into the furnace and struck his body. Li Chijing thought quietly, "Father, I never even saw you before dying, and now I will end up in this desolate southern border. If there truly is an underworld, eldest brother will probably scold me endlessly when I see him. Master is trapped. Senior brother remains in the southern border. Only senior sister is left in the sect. I do not know whether she will be able to preserve the inheritance of Wangyue Peak." Heat swelled around him until the furnace became an inferno. "I only hope second brother and third brother can protect the younger generation at home and see through Qingchi Sect's true face as soon as possible." The great Zhao blinked and laughed as he checked the fire. One spiritual fruit after another went into the furnace while he muttered to himself, 3 days and 3 nights already. The fire used to cook people into pills is the most important part. Fortunately, I have refined these things for so many years that I could do it with my eyes closed. These humans truly are ruthless. They are even willing to send out juniors like these to be refined into pills. No wonder we demon kind have never managed to surpass them. If they did not constantly fight among themselves over benefits and hate one another, how could the rest of us still survive? His fingers brushed a sword wound hidden beneath his scales, an injury that had ached faintly for 300 years. Deep fear appeared in his green eyes. He clenched one hand, separating several streams of pale green radiance. "More than 300 years. I cultivated from the early purple mansion stage all the way to the peak, yet this wound has never healed." Li Jiangkun, a face marked with a crescent pattern, suddenly appeared in his memory. The great Zhao's vertical pupils contracted sharply. Fortunately, that man is dead. After a moment of distraction, he hurriedly threw the remaining spiritual fruit into the furnace. He calculated the timing, expectation appearing in his eyes. Alchemy was his favorite pastime, and this pill was one of the works of which he was most proud. He gently opened the furnace. There was no room-filling radiance. No waves of pill fragrance spread through the cave. The great Zhao frowned and waved his hand. A single earthy yellow pill flew out of the furnace. He stared at it in disbelief. "That is not right. It should be white as snow. Why does it look like this? Could the medicinal power be so great that it has returned to simplicity and concealed itself?" Confused, he shook his head and pulled out a silver needle. He lightly scraped the pill's surface. A faint glow appeared on the needle. "Damn it!" The great Zhao's face twisted with annoyance. "How could this happen? The medicinal power is far too weak. If I send this pill out, will that old ghost Qi come here and fight me to the death? Hundreds of years of refining. And I make a mistake like this now?" His vertical pupils shifted. He took a small container of bright white liquid from his storage pouch and smeared it over the pill with a flick of his finger. Then he mixed in more than 10 kinds of herbs and refined the whole thing for another hour. When he opened the furnace again, brilliant light filled the room and rich fragrance spread everywhere. The great Zhao looked thoroughly dissatisfied. Forget it. If he eats it and dies, then he dies. At least it looks right now. If that old ghost fails his breakthrough, he is doomed anyway. Who would still be around to come here and trouble me? I already received my payment, so whatever happens is his problem. He stored the pill, leapt out of the pool, and handed it to the green-robed purple mansion cultivator. Ice, rear courtyard of Li Jing Mountain. The bronze-green Dharma mirror floated silently above the stone altar. Moonlight surrounded it like mist and smoke. For 3 peaceful years it had remained undisturbed. Now its mirror surface glimmered faintly, while the 12 talisman inscriptions around its frame brightened and dimmed like slow breathing. Incense burned on the altar below. Threads of pale smoke curled upward. It was obvious that the Li clan had not neglected the shrine during these years. Offerings had been replaced regularly, and even the incense burner had been kept spotless. Finally, Lu Jiangxian completed the fusion with the mirror fragment. His spiritual sense swept outward as divine light flickered across the mirror frame, and countless realizations surfaced within him. His consciousness sank into the mirror. A gray world appeared before him. Layer upon layer of ashen fog covered the sky. Below lay a battered land riddled with holes and the ruins of countless pale gray buildings. white fragments shaped like broken crescents lay scattered across the ground. A world exists inside the mirror. Attached to the recovered fragment was actually a small world almost 1,000 li across. At its center stood a vast and majestic mountain. Countless pale blue architectural ruins clustered along its slopes, forming irregular white patches. The nearer one descended toward the foot of the mountain, the denser the remains became. With a movement of Lu Jiangshan's consciousness, dense Taiyin moonlight suddenly appeared and rapidly gathered at the mountain's base. It condensed into the form of a white-haired man in long robes. Crescent patterns decorated his cuffs and collar. Lu Jiangshan moved his body and was immediately overwhelmed by an intense sense of unfamiliarity. A mirror of flowing waterlight formed in front of him. He stared at a face he had not seen in decades and felt deeply disoriented. It was still his face, yet the eye sockets seemed deeper now, and a shallow scar ran across his left cheek. Who am I? A sensation of weightlessness flooded his mind. Lu Jiangshan's spiritual sense erupted like a storm, sweeping across the entire world. He forced down the collapsing sensation and followed the jade road up the mountain step by step. He walked for an unknown length of time before reaching the highest platform. At the center stood an enormous white tree, its roots tangled like countless serpents. Beneath it sat nothing more than a stone table and several stone stools. A single figure knelt there. The man wore white robes, embroidered jade shoes, and a jade crown. He was handsome, with a crescent-shaped mark between his brows. He raised his head, looked at Lu Jiangshan, and said softly, "Palace Master." Lu Jiangshan's mind went completely blank. Countless emotions surged through him. Without thinking, he answered, "Jiang Kun." The young man in white smiled. 1,000 thoughts crowded Lu Jiangshan's mind. He opened his mouth, wanting to speak, but the figure scattered like sand caught in the wind. Only a pale white halo remained where he had knelt. Lu Jiangshan stared blankly for a long time. Without realizing it, tears had filled his face. He reached out a translucent, jade-like hand and accepted the halo. His vision flashed white and he fell into a dream. Li Jiangkun? As had happened several times before, Lu Jiangshan sank into Li Jiangkun's memories. He found himself bending respectfully within an enormous hall, so vast its limits could not be seen. Pale white moonlight drifted everywhere like mist and smoke. Great white jade pillars carved with intricate patterns rose on both sides, supporting a palace of impossible scale. His vision remained fixed on the complicated patterns of the jade tiles beneath his feet, as though he could stare until flowers grew from them. "Do you know your crime?" This disciple knows his crime. Li Jiangkun knelt gently and raised his head. Only then did Lu Jiangshan see the figure seated upon the throne decorated with dragons and phoenixes. Long white hair poured down from the man's head and trailed beyond the seat. The face was unbearably familiar. It was Lu Jiangshan himself, yet this version was older. Lu Qiangshan had died in his modern life at barely over 20 years old. The man on the throne looked 30 or 40. His expression was indifferent as he quietly gazed down at Li Qiangchun. "I sentence you to exile on the southern shore. Take your clansmen with you. Return only after breaking through to the Purple Mansion realm." "This disciple accepts the punishment," Li Jiangkun answered respectfully. The Lu Jiangshans on the throne frowned and spoke in a gentler voice. "You cannot allow personal feelings to govern your actions. You trust others too easily, and you place too much weight on promises. This leak of secrets is only a small lesson. If you cannot change in the future, I fear you will one day die at the hands of those you call friends." "This disciple understands." Li Jiangkun nodded. His eyes were clear and bright as he looked up with a smile. "In this disciple's eyes, people should be treated the same. If I cannot sincerely treat my friends well, how can Master ever trust me? If I can deceive my friends, what meaning would there be in saying I would never deceive Master? If I, Li Jiangkun, were truly a deceitful person, how could Master ever entrust important matters to me?" Lu Jiangshan shook his head slightly. "Kunner, this world has never been clearly divided into black and white. Murderous villains can still possess loyalty. Silver-tongued merchants can still love faithfully. Immortal cultivators standing above the masses may slaughter without mercy, while petty thieves among commoners may possess noble hearts. You see everything too purely. Your cultivation has progressed with little obstruction, but that very purity makes you dangerously vulnerable." Li Jiangkun paused, then nodded, though whether he truly understood was unclear. Lu Jiangshan carefully studied the older version of himself on the throne, trying to find something familiar in the man's expression. The palace master looked faintly lonely. Against the backdrop of the boundless hall, his entire figure carried an austere, distant coldness. "I founded the Moonlight Origin Palace many years ago. Look at the people beneath me. Which of them does not appear affectionate and loyal on the surface while calculating against one another beneath it? My nature is indolent. I was never suited to be palace master. I simply had no choice but to take the position. Palace masters cultivation, formations, and talisman arts all stand at the summit. With the Dharma mirror in your hand, how many people beneath heaven could be your enemy? Everyone may covet your position, but how many would dare try to seize it? Li Jiangqun hurriedly cupped his hands. The world in Lu Jiangxian's vision grew increasingly blurred. The memory was ending. Everything slowly faded downward until Lu Jiangxian stood alone again, beneath the gray sky of the mirror world. His mind was chaos. Were the 20-some years of his modern life merely a dream? Or had the palace master of the Moonlight Origin Palace been his previous incarnation? Lu Jiangxian opened his mouth, only to discover that he was utterly alone. There was no one to confide in and nothing he could say, even if there were. He had always considered himself optimistic. Yet the loneliness he had avoided for decades finally surged up all at once. He raised a finger and tried to pass through the mirror into the rear courtyard of Lijing Mountain. A vast terror immediately rose from somewhere deep within him. Lightning and flame from the northern wind, together with countless fragmented impressions, flashed through his mind. Lu Jiangxian laughed bitterly. At least this prison is much larger now. Until he gathered enough fragments of the mirror, Lu Jiangxian would not dare leave it in human form. He sat at the stone table and took a jade flask and several jade cups from beneath it. Using Taiyan moonlight, he condensed a flask of clear, luminous tea and slowly drank the utterly meaningless liquid. He had only taken a few sips when his ears twitched. The void before him suddenly split apart. A round white talisman seed wrapped in crimson light flew through the opening. White radiance flashed and illuminated the mountaintop. A talisman seed? Whose? Lu Jiangxian raised his brows. The talisman seed dropped into his hand. He studied it carefully and said in a low voice, "Foundation Establishment Cultivation. It must be Li Chijing. Of the 4 sons of the Li family from back then, only one remains alive now." He slowly brought the bright white talisman seed close and inhaled. Streams of white light like mist flowed into his throat and merged with his body. Countless images appeared before him: Wangyue Peak, Qingchi Mountain, Yishan City, the southern border. So it really was that child. What a pity. But the name Qi sounds terribly familiar. Lu Jiangxian thought carefully and suddenly remembered. When the Li clan had explored the cave dwelling on Mixi Mountain, they had found a secret letter. It had been written by Qi to an unknown Foundation Establishment cultivator, inviting him to join the siege against Li Jiangqun. If you are already dead, then so be it. But if you are not, this new hatred added to the old debt will be settled with you sooner or later. Lu Jiangxian sighed. His spiritual power and spiritual sense rose together like a boat lifted by the tide. With the newly fused mirror fragment and the talisman seed, the power of his Taiyan moonlight climbed to the Foundation Establishment level. The number of mystic pearl talisman seeds he could create also rose to 9. His translucent hand lifted gently, then suddenly closed. A pale blue halo condensed from the void. Li Chijing's lifetime of experience and his attainment in the sword. Taiyan moonlight poured outward and fused with the halo, condensing into a pale blue treasure sword. Lu Jiangxian examined it for a while, then casually stabbed it into a great stone nearby. "I will leave it here for someone destined to receive it." Spiritual power rose from his hands. Formation patterns and talismanic structures condensed one after another. Lu Jiangxian once again turned his attention to the Shanyu curse art he had begun researching several years earlier, using it simply to pass the endless time. Li Xuanfeng and Zhang Yunu had coupled dozens of times. Each time he became more relaxed than before, and each time he enjoyed himself more thoroughly. Li Xuanfeng still seemed full of energy, but Zhang Yunu's round face had already gone pale. Sweat beaded along the sides of her nose as she pleaded, "I cannot take any more. Please spare me." Li Xuanfeng paused, embarrassed. He kissed her lightly between the brows and laughed. "Then how much silver do you need?" Zhang Yunu stared at him in disbelief. Li Xuanfeng thought, "I do not carry much mortal silver in my storage pouch. The clan only told me to bring 1,000 taels. I wonder whether that is enough." The Li clan did not keep much ordinary silver. Cultivators rarely needed it, except for certain expenses in alchemy, artifact forging, or talisman work. There was little reason to carry large amounts in a storage pouch. Zhang Yunu's curved brows lifted. Her pretty round face was tense, her complexion still pale. "I am only one woman. 20 taels will be enough. Fine, I will take you away." Li Xuanfeng nodded lightly. Zhang Yunu was kneeling naked on the bed. Astonishment and wild joy filled her face. She thought he was teasing her. "Young master, please do not joke with me." Li Xuanfeng fastened his trousers, took the black longbow from the wall and slung it over his back. "Pack your clothes and belongings, then come." Zhang Yunu stared for a moment before hurriedly gathering her things and dressing. She pulled him downstairs, practically skipping ahead with a smile. For the first time, she looked like an ordinary girl of 14 or 15. Li Xuanfeng followed with a smile. At the front counter sat a slightly plump woman in red, filing her nails. She glanced at Zhang Yunu and turned away with contempt. redeem her contract. Only when Li Xuanfeng spoke did the woman look up in surprise. She turned coldly toward Zhang Yunu. No wonder you look so pleased with yourself. So you found yourself a rich patron. You were planning to walk out without saying a word to madam, were you? Zhang Yunu's face instantly turned white. She did not know where to put her hands. Li Xuanfeng frowned. I said, redeem her contract. The woman finally looked him over properly. He was only 15 or 16, but his bearing suggested a young master from some respectable family. Her attitude immediately became more deferential. Young master, do you know that Drunken Spring House belongs to the county lord? An ordinary household cannot simply redeem one of our girls. If young master has friends among the aristocratic families, you will need one of them to come forward. The woman's tone was polite enough. By aristocratic families, she did not mean cultivation clans such as Xiao, Wu, Ma, or Chang, but powerful mortal houses within the commandery. Li Xuanfeng had no patience to waste on her. He flicked a finger. True essence struck the massive wooden counter and reduced it to dust. Powder blasted across the woman's face. Do not make me say it a third time. Both Zhang Yunu and the woman froze. The woman's legs went weak. She dropped to her knees and slapped herself twice with such force that 2 teeth flew from her mouth. Blood covered her face as she babbled. Immortal master may take her. Immortal master may take her. We had eyes but failed to recognize an immortal. We had eyes and still could not see. Li Xuanfeng tossed down 2 silver ingots and led the stunned Zhang Yunu outside. The revelation frightened her so badly that her limbs trembled and she no longer dared raise her head to look at him. Only after Li Xuanfeng bought a small house, entered the courtyard, and set her down on the bed did Zhang Yunu finally ask in a daze. You are an immortal? A cultivator. Li Xuanfeng corrected her and reached for her belt. Zhang Yunu did not dare stop him, but her face flushed red. I cannot, not again. Li Xuanfeng had no choice but to stop. Looking at the girl's round, pretty face, he suddenly realized that the situation had become difficult. What am I supposed to do with her from now on? Am I really going to return to the clan in 10 days and tell second uncle I went out once and bought a courtesan? Second uncle has always placed so much hope in my future. How could I make him worry? Li Xuanfeng feared neither heaven nor earth. His temperament had always been wild, and he indulged freely in whatever pleased him. Yet 2 things still restrained him: disappointing Li Tongya and delaying the clan's affairs. For once he hesitated. Zhang Yunu studied his expression nervously. Immortal master, what is wrong? Call me Xuanfeng. Li Xuanfeng shook his head. Feeling unusually awkward, he kissed her brow and said, My family's rules are strict. I am afraid I cannot bring you home with me. I will have to wrong you by leaving you here. Zhang Yunu stared at him. Tears gradually gathered at the corners of her eyes. I know my status is low. Young master must come from a lofty immortal clan. How could I ever ask for more? Please do not trouble yourself over me. If young master returns to the heavens to cultivate, I will wait in this courtyard 5 years, 10 years. I will wait until you come back to see me. Li Xuanfeng frowned. He had no patience for tearful speeches. Forget it, I will leave her here. Traveling back and forth only takes a few hours anyway. It will not interfere with anything. He unfastened her robe and drew her into his arms. Zhang Yunu quietly leaned against his chest and whispered, Brother, tonight was enough for me. Even if my life ended now, I would have no regrets. Li Xuanfeng settled Zhang Yunu into the house and spent several days living an ordinary life with her in the town. Soon, however, the date for tribute delivery at Cloudwatch Peak arrived. He stroked her hair and instructed, I am leaving you 100 taels of silver. Use it for now. Hire 2 reliable servants to stay with you. I still have important business. At the longest, I will be away 3 months. At the shortest, 1 month. Then I will return to see you. Yes. Zhang Yunu obediently agreed and did not dare say anything else. Li Xuanfeng reached her sash, looked at her carefully, then said, Wait here. He raised his bow toward the sky, narrowed his eyes and drew the string without knocking an arrow. He released. A deep humming sound filled the courtyard. An invisible arrow shot skyward. Several breaths later, Li Xuanfeng caught a large wild goose falling from the heavens and handed it to Zhang Yunu with a smile. Cook this goose and taste it. There was no matchmaker between us, so let this goose stand in its place for now. We can make up the proper ceremony later. After displaying that near-miraculous archery, Li Xuanfeng slung his bow over his back and rose into the sky on the wind. Zhang Yunu remained standing alone in the courtyard, still clutching the corner of her robe as though lost in a dream. She held the unconscious goose tightly and slowly walked back inside. Li Xuanfeng flew through the clouds for a while and landed at the foot of Cloudwatch Peak. There he saw Xiao Ruyu wearing a broad hat and sweeping the stone steps with a broom. The 17-year-old youth was handsome, and even dressed like a poor laborer he retained an unmistakable elegance. Brother Ruyu, Li Xuanfeng cupped his hands, surprised. What are you doing here? Xiao Ruyu shook his head, looking embarrassed. Brother Xuanfeng, you may not know this, but my Xiao clan has a peculiar rule. Whenever tribute is collected, the young clan head meaning me must sweep Cloudwatch Peak. If talented disciples from the various families arrive, I am supposed to exchange pointers with them. The other families usually give us enough face to agree to a spar. Li Xuanfeng immediately understood and smiled to himself. The Xiao clan is truly cunning. Once people spar with him, their strengths and weaknesses are exposed. But what can anyone do? Refuse to deliver tribute? The Xiao clan is powerful enough that no one dares refuse. He looked at Xiao Ruyu and grinned. So Brother Ruyu wishes to test my abilities? I would not dare call it a test. Only a friendly exchange. Xiao Ruyu hurriedly waved his hands, then hesitated. Brother Li uses a bow. Fighting you face to face would be rather unfair to your style. How about I retreat one Li first and then we begin? No need, Li Xuanfeng laughed loudly. Since entering Qi refining, he had never truly fought at full strength. His hands had been itching for a chance. He lifted the great bow. The weapon fit naturally into his grasp. Without knocking an arrow, he drew the string. A strand of sharp golden gang qi formed along it and locked directly onto Xiao Ruyu. Xiao Ruyu raised the broom in his hand. Silver-white protective true essence revolved around his body, yet a faint ache appeared between his brows. Danger pressed against his mind, his heart sank. This is bad. His cultivation may be lower, but his archery is absolutely beyond that of an ordinary qi refining cultivator. He has been silent until now, but the moment he reveals himself, he is astonishing. I should have rushed him before he drew the bow. I was too careless. Even as he thought, Xiao Ruyu had already taken several rapid steps forward. Xuanfeng released the string. Golden gang qi shot out. The recoil pushed him back 2 steps, and another golden strand immediately condensed upon the bowstring. Xiao Ruyu wrapped his broom in true essence and did not dare lose focus for even an instant. He knew that if one of those gang qi arrows struck him, it would leave a hole straight through his body. He shattered the first golden bolt, spun and broke the next, then destroyed several more in succession while accelerating toward Li Xuanfeng. Yet the closer he came, the colder the wind seemed to become. His movements gradually slowed. What is happening? Alarmed? Xiao Ruyu spread his spiritual sense around his body. Only then did he discover that the gang qi he had shattered had not disappeared. It had split into thin golden currents that clung to his protective true essence like maggots on bone, continuously gnawing away at it. Xiao Ruyu had cultivated his clan's movement art and was originally much faster than Li Xuanfeng. Now, each step became slower. Li Xuanfeng, meanwhile, used the recoil from every shot to widen the distance between them. Xiao Ruyu had no choice but to form hand seals and cast several spells, hoping to disrupt Li Xuanfeng's rhythm. Li Xuanfeng swept the black bow sideways and smashed the spells apart. Then he suddenly stopped and waved a hand. Brother Xiao's cultivation is profound. Enough, enough. Let us stop here. Xiao Ruyu gave him a deep look, dispersed the true essence around his body, and smiled as he cupped his hands. Brother Xuanfeng, please go up the mountain. Li Xuanfeng nodded and took his leave. If this were a battle to the death and I started more than 5 li away, he would almost certainly die. At 1 li, victory and defeat would be difficult to predict. Face to face, I might not be his match at all. Although Li Xuanfeng had held the upper hand, repeatedly drawing the bow had already exhausted his breath and strength. If the fight continued, he might be the one to suffer. That was why he had stopped so quickly. Xiao Ruyu watched him climb the mountain, inwardly alarmed by how troublesome Li Xuanfeng was. He was still replaying the fight in his head when another young man approached from below. Xiao Ruyu asked, "And you are? Lu Yuanlu of the Lu clan? Who are you to block this young master's path?" Xiao Ruyu stared at the arrogant young man in front of him, momentarily speechless. His expression became strange. At the mountaintop, Li Xuanfeng found a small courtyard. He knew none of the people gathered there, so he sat quietly in a corner. After a while, he saw a bruised and swollen young man climb up and could not help wondering. What kind of grudge does that fellow have with Xiao Ruyu to get beaten into such a state? They waited for some time. A cloud vessel glowing with multicolored light finally crossed the sea of clouds and slowly descended onto the peak. A middle-aged man in Taoist robes stepped down. His cultivation was at the peak of qi refining, and he wore a jade crown that gave him a dignified appearance. He first saluted Xiao Chuting, then closed his eyes and rested while attendants from the Immortal Sect began calling the names of the families one after another. Li Xuanfeng waited until the Lijing Li clan was called and stepped forward to present their tribute. The jade-crowned cultivator's ears twitched. He opened his eyes and nodded politely to Li Xuanfeng. "I have long heard the great name of the Li clan. Your reputation is well-deserved. A 15-year-old qi refining cultivator is rare even within the sect." Li Xuanfeng paused. He had no idea when his clan's name had become known inside Qingchi Sect, so he could only cup his hands. "Senior praises me too highly. Junior was merely fortunate. We are only a small family from the borderlands. I did not expect our name to reach Senior's ears." The middle-aged man shook his head. he actually interrupted the tribute collection process to speak with Li Xuanfeng for a while. Senior Li Chijing, the Qingwei Sword Immortal, broke through to Foundation establishment in Yishan City several days ago. With a single use of Moongang Sword intent, he defeated the Fire Phoenix Sword, Qi Yun. His attainment in the sword now stands above every peak in the sect. With news like that spreading back, who in Qingchi Sect would not know the name of the Lijiang Li clan? The words shocked everyone around them. Joy immediately filled Li Xuanfeng's face. He was young. By the time he was born, Li Chijing had already entered the sect, and Li Xuanfeng barely remembered what this younger uncle even looked like. Yet the news still filled him with pride and excitement. He thanked the cultivator repeatedly. Xiao Chuting, standing nearby, opened his eyes slightly. Unlike the others, he understood what the title Sword Immortal truly implied. Qingwei Sword Immortal. Li Chijing really comprehended sword intent. What a heaven-defying genius. Yuan always said his talent was extraordinary, but I never imagined it had reached this degree. Then Xiao Chuting sighed inwardly. What a pity he fell into the hands of Qingchi Demon Sect. With such an exquisite Dao foundation, how could he possibly have a good ending? Sooner or later he will merely become cultivation resources for that old demon. What a waste. The middle-aged cultivator became more animated as he spoke. I also cultivate the sword. I had intended to travel south and meet the Sword Immortal personally to ask for guidance. Unfortunately, I heard Senior Li was assigned deep into the southern border to search for medicine for the sect. He may not return for decades, so I could only give up the thought. He sighed regretfully, then looked at Li Xuanfeng with increasing warmth. Before leaving the sect, I specifically checked the registers. The Li clan was still listed as a minor embryonic breath clan. Those responsible for the records are clearly careless. Since your clan now has a qi refining cultivator, shall I correct it here? Li Xuanfeng agreed at once. The middle-aged man took out brush and ink and personally did work usually left to attendants, changing the Li clan status in the register to a great clan. Then he added with regret, if not for the sect rule that a clan may only be listed as an aristocratic cultivation house after one of its disciples reaches foundation establishment within the sect, I would change that for you as well. Li Xuanfeng accepted the new allotment of seeds and clan stipend. After exchanging a few more words with the middle-aged cultivator, he withdrew. Only then did the man happily resume receiving the other family's tribute. Li Xuanfeng stood near the front beside the other prominent cultivators, and basked in the admiring, astonished looks around him. The image of his younger uncle grew even more magnificent in his imagination. When I reach foundation establishment, I must spar with younger uncle properly. I want to see whether my bowstring is faster or his sword. Farewell, immortal master. The cloud vessel lifted from Cloudwatch Peak, passed through the clouds, and disappeared at the horizon. Li Xuanfeng and the other cultivators rose together. Xiao Chuting offered the same polite closing remarks as in previous years, waved for everyone to disperse, and vanished from Cloudwatch Peak. The summit immediately became lively. A crowd of people rushed to speak with Li Xuanfeng. Fellow Taoist, I am from Nanwu Commandery. Before the man could finish, someone else cut in with cupped hands. Fellow Taoist, may I ask whether you are already betrothed? I am from the Dongchang clan. You! The two glared at one another, nearly ready to fight on the spot. Li Xuanfeng's head began to ache. Xiao Yongling hurriedly stepped between them. Gentlemen, this is Cloudwatch Peak. Please stop. If you have grievances, settle them after descending the mountain. Then he cupped his hands toward the surrounding crowd and spoke politely. Everyone, Brother Li and my Xiao clan still have important matters to discuss. We must leave Cloudwatch Peak now. Please find another opportunity to make his acquaintance. My apologies. Without lingering, Xiao Yongling swept his sleeve and rose into the air with Li Xuanfeng, leaving the crowd behind exchanging looks. The two landed in the mountains. Li Xuanfeng smiled bitterly. Xiao Yongling shook his head with a laugh. The world worships power. From now on, the Li clan will not lack people like these gathering around you. You should become accustomed to it early. If you show them an unprovoked cold face, they will remember the insult. If you smile and entertain every one of them, you will waste endless time. The best choice is usually to withdraw quickly. After saying this, Xiaoling carefully studied Li Xuanfeng's expression, checking whether the younger man was angry that his moment of attention had been interrupted. Seeing Li Xuanfeng thoughtful rather than displeased, he nodded and smiled. The entire sect knows the Qingwei Sword Immortal of your clan now. With a figure like that protecting the family, the road ahead of the Li clan should be smooth indeed. Li Xuanfeng laughed, unable to hide the pleasure in his face, though he still cupped his hands modestly. You flatter us. How could he compare with Senior Chuting? Xiao Yongling immediately formed a clear judgment of him. Li Xuanfeng's emotions show easily. He disdains hiding them, yet he is not reckless and still knows restraint. Compared with Li Tongya, whose temperament is as deep and unreadable as a still pool, this young man is far easier to deal with. His talent is also extraordinary. In less than 10 years, he may very well stand at the head of the Li clan. He simply needs more tempering. The thought passed through Xiao Yongling's mind in an instant. He knew what kind of language appealed to someone like Li Xuanfeng, so his tone became a little more free and heroic. Come, let me introduce you to someone. This master is still young, yet he is already a famous formation master throughout the commandery. Over the past several hundred years in all of Lixia commandery, perhaps only Wan Huachen could clearly surpass him. Oh? Li Xuanfeng nodded and looked ahead with interest. A young man in a sable fur robe sat upright in the courtyard, reading while holding a cup of tea. His bearing was extraordinary. Seeing the two arrive, he immediately stood and cupped his hands. I am Liu Changdi, greetings to you both. Li Xuanfeng quickly returned the salute. Xiao Yongling smiled broadly. The moment this master heard that the Lijing Li clan was looking for someone, he followed me here without a second word. That alone shows how thunderous your clan's reputation has become. Li Xuanfeng froze. Something felt wrong. Even the surrounding clans had only just learned the latest news from the tribute collector. It had not yet spread through the commandery. How had this man known? Liu Changdi quickly cupped his hands and explained. I was once invited by an old friend to Qingchi Sect, where I met the Qingwei Sword Immortal. We spoke very pleasantly. That was how I came to see the green-red sword. Its blade was long and slender, elegant to the eye. I have never forgotten it. He looked Li Xuanfeng up and down. The young man's eyes were bright as lightning, and there was a bold, open quality between his brows. Liu Changdi immediately praised. Old Master Li may live quietly in the mountains with little fame, but his descendants all possess remarkable bearing. Truly a family blessed by heaven, Li Xuanfeng laughed. The man seemed to be a friend of his younger uncle Li Chijing, and his description was detailed enough to sound genuine. Li Xuanfeng's caution eased by 3 parts, though he still smiled carefully. I did not expect Master Liu to know my Li clan so well. Liu Changdi nodded elegantly and ended the subject. Yet inwardly, he was shocked. The famous figures of later generations truly are none of them simple. Xiao Yongling of Fisherman Mountain is already experienced and shrewd. And Golden Court Xuanfeng, at only 15, is already bold, spirited, and sharp. Extraordinary indeed. In my previous life, I went to the eastern Shanyu to repair a formation for Yuanzhao. After Li Yuanzhao became drunk, he once told me stories about the generations of the Li clan. I thought I could use those details to become closer to them. I nearly exposed myself instead. His thoughts flashed like lightning, but outwardly Liu Changdi continued chatting warmly with the two men. He told several fascinating stories about Qingchi Sect, all connected in some way to Li Chijing. The other two listened with interest while carefully watching his expressions. Whenever the Qingwei Sword Immortal fought an enemy, he favored a movement known as the one-draw sword form. Sometimes it appeared like a crescent moon, sometimes like the full moon, sometimes hanging in the air like a star. Its power was astonishing. One sword was often enough to heavily injure his opponent. Liu Changdi kept speaking confidently. When he saw the two men nodding, he secretly sighed in relief. Fortunately, the Qingwei Sword Immortal went to the southern waste 70 years ago in my previous life, and never returned. Yuanzhao also described the power of this sword art to me. No matter how I embellish the story, I should not contradict anything they know. Otherwise, this would be extremely difficult. The three chatted for a while longer. Xiao Yongling eventually glanced at the time and suddenly remembered their purpose. We have been speaking so pleasantly that we forgot the hour. We still need to descend the mountain today. We cannot delay Brother Xuanfeng's affairs. Li Xuanfeng also came back to himself. He slapped his thigh. Brother Changdi, then please tell me how you would arrange the formation. He carefully described the terrain and orientation of Lijing Mountain, along with his clan's requirements. When he finished, he asked with some apprehension. Our minimum requirement is that the formation withstand attacks from a late-stage qi refining cultivator. Can Brother Changdi construct such a formation? And how many spirit stones would it cost to arrange it around Lijing Mountain? Liu Changdi nodded. Across his previous and present lives, he possessed more than 100 years of experience with formations. A grand formation of this level was not effortless, but it was certainly familiar territory. If I were to arrange it according to my own design, I would use at least 12 formation flags and incorporate the neighboring Mixi Mountain into the array. The two mountains would become 2 peaks of one formation. I would use the Sundial Mystic Light formation to cover them both. With that formation in place, even a peak qi refining cultivator could be held off for some time. Liu Changdi raised his head proudly. In his previous life, he had been obsessed with formations. He studied them relentlessly, even at the expense of his cultivation. Now his mastery of formation arts was nearly unmatched along the ancient Li Road. Even several formation geniuses from the 3 sects and 7 gates would struggle to surpass him. In his heart, Liu Changdi believed that even Wan Huachen himself, if he crawled out of his grave, might not necessarily be his superior. If that can be done, it would be perfect. Li Xuanfeng immediately brightened. If Mixi Mountain could be incorporated and treated as a second peak of Lijing Mountain, the cave complex there would finally be protected. The clan would no longer need to worry about maintaining a separate defensive formation around it. But how many spirit stones would it cost? Li Xuanfeng did not agree immediately. He first asked for a precise price. The Qingwei Sword Immortal and I are friends. He helped me greatly in my cultivation, and I have always been deeply grateful. Liu Changdi nodded, his expression sincere. Brother Xuanfeng and I also felt like old friends from the moment we met, so I will speak frankly. I have deduced the sundial Mystic Light formation many times. Constructing it over these 2 mountains should cost around 80 or 90 spirit stones in materials. My usual fee for the work would bring the total to 120 spirit stones.